Of perhaps how many. They've added just one more since, Julian Alvarez managing to divert a miss-hit by Rico Lewis that was intended for the back of the net. And so at half-time here at the Etihad Stadium in this FA Cup third round tie, it is the holders, the Blues 2, Huddersfield Town 0. Well, let's go back and join two of the boys of 99, Paul Dickov and Andy Morrison, in the company of Ellard.
Lovely, thank you, Ali. Welcome back to Matchday Live. Andy Morrison, Paul Dickov alongside me. 2-0. Very, as you know, we heard towards the end of that commentary, quite confident towards the end. It well in control, but it was a bit of a slow start, wasn't it? What was missing through the early stages for City?
Well, obviously a goal. I mean, I thought Huddersfield, the first few minutes, had a little bit of momentum, put a couple of balls into the box, turned us round. But then we gradually felt our way in, and you always feel like it's only a matter of time before the goal's going to come. And it feels like there's another gear that we can go to at any time. Across the last few games, it feels like we can really raise the intensity, and it's just that little moments of quality and. You know, and the goals came at the right time, and you know, it's a fair reflection of the first half.
Yeah, I think so. Lots of possession in those early stages, particularly around the edge of the area, but no real presence, I think, early on for City in the box. That then did change after we got the first goal. Yeah,
it's difficult, you know, especially when we've been that used to last season and beginning of this season having Erling in there. You know, he does give you that option. You know, he's a big presence in there. He attracts centre-halves, whether it's 2 at the back or 3 at the back. Sometimes he occupies them all, and that allows space for everybody else. But you know, Huddersfield done really, really well up until a point, as in a defensive shape. You know, but you see Premier League teams come here and try and do that and try and keep City at bay, and they can't do it. And that's no disrespect to Huddersfield. But like Andy said, I think there's just a belief that if we keep the ball and keep the ball moving, that at some point they are going to score and spaces are going to open up. You know, we said before the game that you can defend for as long as you want, but as soon as tiredness and concentration levels go, and I think that's what happened within the 2 goals that we scored. You know, just a couple of players from Huddersfield side maybe switched off, and it got, you know, Alvarez to the ball from Kovacic for the first goal, and then the 1-2 with Nunez for the second goal. You know, it just takes one player to switch off and leave that gap, and City are that good that they exploit it.
Yeah, before we'll get into those goals in a bit more detail in a couple of minutes. Before the goals, though, the main talking point was the injury to Akanji. We saw him come back onto the pitch, but then have to go off. How much are you worried about that, considering that we already have Stones out? Yeah,
I think you're worried if any player has to leave the pitch. You know, and we didn't really know with John Stones what the level of the injury was, and we were hoping it would be a quick turnaround. And you know, it's obviously taken a bit longer, and that looked a bit unpleasant. You know, Akanji's a big, strong boy, and you know, he looked in a real bit of discomfort when he was on the pitch, and you know, hopefully it's just a precaution. And you know, I always like to see a player get back up and carry on. You know, if they have to be taken off straight away, it's normally. But the fact he was moving, you know, gives you a little bit more encouragement.
I think what Andy said, you know, Akanji's he's a big, strong boy, isn't he? And he doesn't go down easily. And usually, if he does go down, he gets straight back up again.
I've not seen him go off injured.
No, I've not. And I think the fact that he was down for so long, then tried to carry on and couldn't, and had to go back down as well. You know, because mentally he's very strong as well to come off the pitch. Hopefully it's not too bad, but it is a little bit of a worry if you see somebody walking off, especially in the first half. I
think, you know, when you look at the opposition as well, though, there'll be an idea maybe that you'd want to take him off and just, you know, avoid any risk of having him to play on further, particularly with big games coming up in the Premier League.
Of course you do, but at the same time, you know, as a player, you're out there on the pitch, you want to stay on there as long as you can. But hopefully it's, yeah, as you said, it's just a precaution that we're doing it, taking him off, and hopefully we're ready for Newcastle next week.
Absolutely. So, like I said, things started to change, go more in City's favour around the 20-25 minute mark. Is there anything you pinpoint that change down to apart from the goal?
No, I think Paul spoke about it earlier on. You know, I'm trying to think of a better word than you're playing dope football. You're waiting for the opposition, somebody to switch off. And what happened is, you won't be able to see it clearly, but the reverse ball from Kovacic, which allowed Alvarez, now the centre-half, the captain, has gone 3 yards deeper into the box with Oscar Bob, which has created that space, but if he keeps this line, Alvarez runs offside. There's then a little bit of passage of play where there's a bit of a ricochet, and then, you know, Phil Foden, the man of the moment, has arrived at the right time, and then he's clinical. It's a terrific finish, although there's an element of good fortune with the way the ball fell for him. But, you know, again, I spoke before the game, and you asked for a player, and I said Phil Foden could be the difference. You know, I just think he is. He's at the top of his game, and there was very little space early on in the game, and they're also playing with a real freedom, which allows your touch to be better. You know, they're not under pressure to, if it's a huge game and they make a mistake, you know, they've turned up here today, and they're going to try and enjoy it. There's a freedom. They kept the ball really well at times when they had the ball, but, you know, on the turnover, eventually somebody's going to switch off, and it's normally 35, and then from 70 minutes onwards, it's very, very hard to continually keep that focus, that intensity, and that communication. Somebody will switch off.
Andy was absolutely delighted when he saw Phil Foden go off to the corner to celebrate. Obviously, you spoke about him. He called it pre-match. 10 goals for season now. Brilliant returns at this stage.
It is, and we spoke a lot about him before the game, and people were saying that he's only starting adding numbers to his game now. He's only starting to be a big presence in the team now. He's been doing it for the last few years. He has, you know, and the touch, not just to finish, the touch to set him up for the goal was fantastic. He was involved in the second goal, you know, the little 1-2 Nunes, and everything that's good about Manchester City at the moment, not just today, but over the last few weeks, Phil's been at the centre of it. And it's as if, you know, said with KDB not there, with no Erling there, it's as if he's went, come on, I'm going to be the main man now, and I'm going to show everybody what I'm all about.
And Alvarez with the second. Great run down the line from Nunes, and then I think the angle looked a bit tighter in here than it was, but still a great goal. Yeah,
it was, and it said, you know, it just takes one. Dope football is Andy. I love that saying. Just takes one player to switch off, and you know, Nunes has got the ball. He's played the 1-2. Guy's not went with him. He's put a good ball in. I know Rico will probably like to say that he's claiming an assist for that one, but he's sort of scuffed his shot, and Alvarez is also good centre forwards are. You know, they're alive on their toes and reacted to it first and put it in the back of the net. And you know, he's been fantastic as well. You know, his goals and his assists. Julian Alvarez, like Phil, doesn't really get spoken about the way
his numbers are remarkable.
Unbelievable.
He's always, again, slightly under the radar because you've got a global superstar in Haaland, but his numbers are remarkable. You know, and if somebody's in the box, you put the ball into the box enough times. I'm sure Alvarez would be. He's a very humble young man, but I'm sure he would be mumbling under his voice all the time. Put it in the box. Put it in the box. Just put it in there, because I will be on the move and I will get on the end of things. And you know, it's not good fortune that it goes through the legs. You know, he just steers it into the corner. And another great finish.
Just before we scored, me and Andy were talking about maybe not as putting enough crosses in the box, and we actually put 2 in the box. That maybe we didn't have the numbers in there, but it caused a little bit of panic.
But it's not always the first phase, Alan. The ball goes in and a defender will stretch his foot out to clear it, but when it goes out the other side, they're not set up now. There's where you'll get somebody running on the outside. There you might find a little pocket of space, but sometimes just put it in there and something will develop on the next phase, not necessarily that one.
It upsets some position like
absolutely,
and what they're seeing at the time, you know, because that used to be set, and if something happens, all of a sudden the concentration of where you're being set in that position goes out the window.
So it's been a busy day so far. FG has been running around, and earlier on he got the thoughts of former City manager Brian Horton around his FA Cup memories, and we can hear from him now.
Yes, here we are pitchside at the Etihad with former Huddersfield and much loved Manchester City manager Brian Horton. Now then, Brian, the FA Cup, a special competition. What are your thoughts on it?
Oh, it's a fantastic competition, and like today, Huddersfield, new manager in, not doing very well in the league, but opportunity for them to come today, bring a lot of supporters and show what they can do. They've got nothing to lose after they come in playing the best side probably in the world at the moment. So it's always an exciting time in the FA Cup.
It's also an exciting time in the studio for those who are watching right now, because this man knows Andy Morrison and Paul Dickov very, very well. Let's start with Andy, a man who played under you, Andy Morrison. Explain what was Andy like in the dressing room and as a player?
He was fantastic captain. He led by example. Unfortunately for me, he got an injury towards the end of my tenure at Huddersfield. But great captain, good player, good in the dressing room, and I have loads and loads of time for Andy. He played the game properly, and he's been a credit to football.
And Paul Dickov, of course, you know, from managing, right? So you were involved in a coaching setup with Paul Dickov. What's Paul like as a manager? We already know how good he is as a player. What about as a manager?
He was just as fiery as a manager as he was as a player. And I like that. I was the same. So we had that in common. And it was good working for him. Again, a good club, Doncaster. As Huddersfield, a great time I had at Huddersfield for just over 2 years. But Dickie was obviously scored the goal at Wembley that's made him immortal, hasn't it? I mean, I was doing the commentary that day.
Well, it's been absolutely amazing speaking to you. Thank you so much, Brian. Let's head back to the studio. Andy and Paul, you must have some lovely words for this, man. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
I'm going to give you a right of reply there, Paul.
He was more fiery than I was, trust me. So I was the manager and I brought him in to calm me down. I ended up having to calm him down the touchline. But great, like, the experience he had as a manager, me being a young manager, it was fantastic for me.
I think, again, I think only in time when you look back and you reflect on relationships that you had with people, do you actually appreciate how good they were and what good people they were. Like, when Brian, was the gaffer and made me captain at Huddersfield, and I picked up a really bad injury which ended up finishing my career a few years later, so I always felt like I let him down, but I always wanted to do well for him. And as Paul has just said, he was just so intense and
the nicest man, quietest man in the world, off the pitch, most respectful.
But anywhere near
get him in that changing room in the dugout.
Yeah. Whether it was a training session or whatever, everything was full on, and his intensity in his eyes. I always remember his eyes because there was just something that made you listen to when he spoke, and an incredible career. It's great to see him.
Yeah. But that's the trait that's really valuable to have, obviously, when you're working under someone, but also alongside someone.
Yeah, as I said, I brought him in when I went to Doncaster, which was, no disrespect to Oldham at the time, it was a step up for me. And my biggest problem at Oldham was I didn't have an experienced number two or an experienced word in my ear, and he was great for me, whether it was just little chats in the office. We used to travel in together, just picking up bits and pieces, just talking about football. And sometimes he wouldn't even realise that he was giving me advice just by talking about football to him, and he was great for me.
No, that's lovely. It's time to move on to our final mystery blue clue. Let's take a look at the clues we've had before. So this mystery blue has won the FA Cup twice, as well as the equivalent in his homeland. An anagram of this mystery blue's name is Dunking La Yoga. And this mystery blue, this one gives it away, for me, if the other one didn't. You two got it on the other one. Holds the record for the fastest goal in an FA Cup final. If you have the answer based on those three, do give us a message on WhatsApp. The number is on the screen. A lot of you have got in touch already. And I finally got round to getting it. It finally clicked in my head. Any changes, do you think, at half-time, lads?
No, I don't think so. I think we're both itching, to see Kevin. I'd love to see him. I'd love to see him come on at half-time and get 45 minutes. When you're coming back from a long-time injury, I'm not so sure about 70, 75 minutes coming on when you've just been jogging up and down the touchline for, the best part of over an hour. I'm not sure if that's right. I'd like to see either half-time or I don't think we'll see him, but we'll see.
I think not just here in the studio, I think in the stadium's desperate to see him on, but people like Phil, Docker's on the bench, whether it's Jack, might get a little rest, because after the cup game today, we've got a big game against Newcastle next week, so just managing the minutes and managing the players' bodies more than anything else. But I can't see it being anything else and as comfortable, if not even more, in the second half.
Yeah, players starting to run out. Also, a word, we mentioned it before, how important it would be. We've got obviously the more experienced bodies, but then also Jacob Wright, just 18, first time in a matchday squad. Micah Hamilton, someone we've spoken about a lot. There's so much experience, but also youth and hunger on that bench.
Yeah, and look, if we get another goal or a couple of goals, it'll be a great opportunity to try and get on the pitch. Like Andy said, maybe Kevin's been out for so long after sitting on the bench 45 minutes, and then you want to make sure when he comes on the pitch that he's warm and he's ready to go. Yeah. But the younger ones, it might be a fantastic opportunity to get them on the pitch, and alongside their mates, Rico Lewis, Oscar Bob, Phil Foden. We could have 5 academy players on the pitch by the end of the game, which would be amazing. That
would be incredible, wouldn't it? So, as you can see, the players starting to make their way out of the tunnel. We can hand you back to our commentary team and former captain Richard Dunn. He is alongside Alistair Mann.
Thank you, Alan. Welcome back to the Etihad Stadium. There are a lot of Huddersfield Town players.